The Arizona summer heat had been relentless all day, and even as the sun dipped below the horizon, the air remained thick and oppressive. Amanda Foster wiped the sweat from her brow as she pulled her aging Honda Civic into the fluorescent-lit oasis of Murphy's gas station, a lonely outpost on Route 89, about 15 miles outside of Prescott Valley. The digital clock on her dashboard read 10:47 p.m., and every muscle in her body ached from the double shift she had just completed at Yavapai Regional Medical Center. In the back seat, 9-year-old Dylan pressed his face against the window, his brown hair sticking up at odd angles from where he had been sleeping against the headrest. Beside him, 6-year-old Grace clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, her eyes barely open as she fought against the pull of sleep. "Mom, I'm thirsty," Dylan mumbled, his voice thick with exhaustion. Amanda glanced at the fuel gauge, hovering dangerously close to empty, and made a quick mental calculation of her checking account balance. The mortgage was due in 3 days. Dylan needed new shoes for school, and Grace's asthma medication would need to be refilled by Friday. She had exactly $43 in cash tucked into her wallet, money that needed to stretch until her next paycheck in 5 days. "I know, sweetie. We'll get you some water when we get home, okay? It's only 20 minutes, she said, trying to keep the weariness out of her voice. She stepped out of the car, the desert air immediately enveloping her like a heavy blanket. The gas station was eerily quiet, except for the hum of the overhead lights and the distant sound of 18-wheelers rumbling along the interstate. Murphy's was one of those places that time seemed to have forgotten. A single-story structure with peeling paint, a flickering neon sign advertising cold beer and lottery tickets, and 2 ancient gas pumps that looked like they belonged in a museum. Amanda unscrewed her gas cap and selected the lowest grade fuel, watching the numbers tick upward on the digital display with growing anxiety. $20 would get her enough gas to make it through the week if she was careful. She squeezed the handle and tried not to think about how she used to fill the tank without checking the price, back when her ex-husband Michael was still around, back before he decided that being a father was too much responsibility and disappeared to God knows where. That was 2 years ago, 2 years of doing everything alone, 2 years of working double shifts and missing Dylan's baseball games and Grace's dance recitals because she couldn't afford to say no to overtime. 2 years of being strong when all she wanted to do was break down and cry. The pump clicked off at exactly $20, and Amanda replaced the nozzle with mechanical precision. She was turning back toward her car when she noticed the 3 men emerging from a battered black Dodge Challenger parked in the shadows beyond the reach of the station's lights. The one in front was tall and wiry, with a shaved head that gleamed under the fluorescent lights and a spiderweb tattoo creeping up his neck. He wore a stained white tank top that showed off heavily muscled arms covered in prison ink. His eyes, dark and predatory, locked onto Amanda with an intensity that made her stomach drop. Behind him were 2 others. One was shorter and stocky, with a thick beard and a red bandana tied around his head, while the third was younger, maybe early 20s, with nervous energy radiating from every movement. All 3 moved with the practiced coordination of a pack of wolves who had done this before. Amanda's nursing instincts, honed from years of emergency room experience, immediately kicked into high alert. She had seen enough violence, enough victims of assault and robbery to recognize danger when she saw it. Her hand moved instinctively toward her car door handle. "Evening, ma'am," the tall one said, his voice carrying a false cheerfulness that made Amanda's skin crawl. "Nice night for a drive." "Good evening," Amanda replied curtly, opening her car door and preparing to slide inside. "Hold on now. Where's the fire?" The man moved closer, positioning himself between Amanda and her vehicle. Up close, she could smell the acrid stench of cigarettes and cheap whiskey on his breath. "We're just being friendly. Name's Travis Kane. These are my associates, Ray Hutchins and Danny Cortez. I really need to get my children home," Amanda said, her voice steady despite the fear beginning to claw at her chest. "It's late." Travis glanced into the back seat of her car, his gaze lingering on Dylan and Grace in a way that made Amanda's maternal instincts flare into full protective mode. Grace had woken up and was staring at the strangers with wide, frightened eyes. "Cute kids," Travis said, that predatory smile never leaving his face. "Traveling all alone. Where's Daddy?" "That's none of your business," Amanda snapped, her fear giving way to anger. "Please move so I can leave." Ray, the stocky one with the beard, let out a low whistle. "Got some attitude on her, this one. I like that. Shows spirit." "We're just wondering if you could spare a few dollars," Travis continued, his tone shifting slightly, becoming harder. "Gas is expensive these days, you know, and we're having some financial difficulties." Amanda's heart was pounding now, her medical training screaming at her to de-escalate, to comply, to do whatever it took to protect her children. "I don't have any money," she said, which was almost true. "I just spent my last $20 on gas." "Now that's interesting," Travis said, reaching out and gripping Amanda's wrist with surprising force, "because I watched you pull out your wallet and it looked pretty full to me. How about you let us take a look just to verify your story?" "Let go of me," Amanda said, trying to pull away, but his grip tightened painfully. From inside the car, Dylan's voice cut through the night air. "Leave my mum alone." The 9-year-old was scrambling to unbuckle his seatbelt, his young face contorted with a mixture of fear and determination that broke Amanda's heart. This was exactly what she had tried so hard to shield them from: the ugliness of the world, the cruelty of desperate people, the reality that not everyone could be trusted. "Dylan, stay in the car," Amanda commanded, her voice sharp with authority. "Listen to your mama, kid," Travis said, his attention still focused on Amanda. "This doesn't concern you. Ray, why don't you help the lady find her wallet?" Ray moved forward, and that's when Amanda made her decision. She wouldn't give them anything without a fight. Not in front of her children, not when she had worked so hard for every dollar in that wallet. She yanked her arm back with all her strength, breaking Travis's grip, and stumbled backward against her car. "Help!" She screamed toward the gas station's convenience store, where she could see the clerk, a middle-aged man with thinning hair, watching through the window with wide eyes. "Call the police!" But the clerk didn't move. He just stood there, frozen, his hand hovering near the phone but not picking it up. Amanda felt her hope deflate like a punctured balloon. Travis's expression darkened, his false friendliness evaporating completely. "Now you've gone and made this difficult," he said, pulling Amanda's purse from where it hung on her shoulder. She tried to hold on, but Danny grabbed her other arm, forcing her back against the car with enough force to knock the wind from her lungs. "Stop it! You're hurting her!" Dylan was crying now, banging on the window from inside the car. Travis dumped the contents of Amanda's purse onto the hood of her car. Her wallet, her phone, her hospital ID badge, a crumpled grocery list, Grace's inhaler, and an assortment of receipts and loose change. He snatched up the wallet and flipped it open, pulling out the $43 in cash with a derisive snort. "This is it? $43? He looked at Amanda with mock disappointment. "What kind of mother are you, running around with barely enough money to feed your kids? Maybe if you spent less time at the hospital and more time finding a man to take care of you, you wouldn't be in this situation." The words hit Amanda like physical blows. It was every insecurity she had ever felt about being a single mother, every whispered judgment from her ex-husband's family, every side-eye from married couples at parent-teacher conferences, all weaponized and thrown in her face by a stranger who knew nothing about her life or her struggles. "You don't know anything about me," Amanda said, her voice breaking despite her best efforts to stay strong. "I know you're alone," Travis continued, clearly enjoying the psychological torture now. "I know you're struggling. I know these kids are going to grow up without a father, probably end up messed up in the head, blaming their mama for not being good enough. It's sad, really." Ray laughed, a cruel sound that echoed across the empty parking lot. "Maybe we should take the phone too," he suggested. "Looks like a newer model. Could get a few bucks for it." "No, please," Amanda begged, hating how weak she sounded, but knowing that phone was her lifeline, her way to call for help if Grace had an asthma attack, her alarm clock for work, her only means of communication with the outside world. "I need that for emergencies." "Should have thought about that before you got all mouthy with us," Travis said, pocketing her cash and reaching for the phone. That's when they all heard it, a low rumble in the distance, growing steadily louder. It sounded like thunder, but the night sky was clear and full of stars. Travis paused, his hand hovering over Amanda's phone as the rumble grew into a roar. Then, from both directions on Route 89, motorcycles appeared. Not just one or two, but a dozen, then 2 dozen, their headlights cutting through the darkness like a cavalry charge in an old western. The bikes were massive Harley-Davidsons, their chrome gleaming under the gas station lights, and their riders were built to match. Broad-shouldered men and a few women in leather vests, their faces hard and weathered. The motorcycles surrounded the gas station in a coordinated movement that spoke of military precision. They formed a loose circle around Amanda's car and the 3 would-be thieves, their engines idling with a collective growl that vibrated through the pavement and into Amanda's bones. From the lead bike, a man dismounted with the fluid grace of someone half his age. He was in his late 40s, tall and powerfully built, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and a thick beard that couldn't hide the scar running along his jawline. His leather vest bore a patch that read Desert Riders MC and beneath it, President. His eyes, a striking shade of grey, swept over the scene with the analytical precision of someone trained to assess threats quickly. "Evening, gentlemen," the man said, his voice deep and calm, carrying the kind of authority that came from years of command. "Looks like we interrupted something. Hope we're not intruding." Marcus Sullivan had seen a lot of ugliness in his 48 years. 2 tours in Afghanistan as a Marine Corps sergeant, a difficult transition back to civilian life, a marriage that fell apart under the weight of his PTSD, and the slow process of rebuilding himself through the brotherhood of the Desert Riders. But one thing that had always set his blood boiling was watching predators target the vulnerable. And right now he was watching 3 predators corner a woman and her children. Travis Kane had been in enough bad situations to recognize when the odds had shifted dramatically out of his favor. He released Amanda's phone and stepped back, his hands raising in a gesture of false innocence. "No problem here, friend. Just having a conversation with the lady." Marcus's gray eyes moved from Travis to Amanda, taking in her disheveled appearance, the tears streaking down her face, the protective way she was positioning herself between her car and the 3 men. Behind her, through the car window, he could see 2 frightened children watching the scene unfold. "That's so," Marcus said, his tone conversational but edged with something dangerous. "Ma'am, is that accurate? Were you just having a conversation?" Amanda's voice shook when she spoke. "They took my money. They threatened me and my children." A murmur rippled through the assembled bikers, a collective sound of anger barely held in check. Marcus raised one hand, and the murmuring stopped immediately. The discipline and unity of the Desert Riders was evident in that simple gesture. These weren't random thugs on motorcycles. They were a tight-knit organization with structure and loyalty. "That's a serious accusation," Marcus said, his gaze never leaving Travis. "What do you have to say about that?" Ray, apparently deciding that bravado was their best option, puffed out his chest. "We don't answer to you. This isn't your business." One of the other bikers, a massive man with arms like tree trunks and a long braided beard, climbed off his motorcycle and moved to stand beside Marcus. His vest identified him as Sergeant-at-Arms, and the look in his eyes suggested he was very good at his job. "You're making it our business," the big man said, his voice rumbling like an avalanche. "See, we take care of our community, and right now you're messing with someone in our community." "We don't even know her," Travis protested, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. Danny, the younger member of their trio, was edging backward, his eyes darting between the bikers looking for an escape route. Marcus turned his attention back to Amanda. "Are you hurt, ma'am?" "No," Amanda said, though her wrist was already starting to bruise where Travis had grabbed her. "Just scared." "That's understandable." Marcus's voice softened slightly. "How much did they take from you?" $43, Amanda whispered. "It's all I had until payday." The number hung in the air, stark in its modesty. They hadn't robbed a bank or stolen thousands of dollars. They had terrorized a woman and her children for less than $50. The contempt on Marcus's face was palpable. "Travis Kane," Marcus said. And there was something in how he said the name that made Travis flinch. "Yeah, I know who you are. You and your buddies have been causing problems around Prescott Valley for months now. Small-time stuff, convenience store robberies, stealing from folks at gas stations, selling meth to high school kids. The police haven't been able to catch you because you're smart enough to keep moving, but your luck just ran out." "You can't do anything to us," Travis said, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. "We haven't broken any laws that you can prove." "Actually, assault and robbery are pretty clear-cut," came a new voice. A woman dismounted from one of the motorcycles, pulling off her helmet to reveal shoulder-length auburn hair and sharp green eyes. She was in her mid-30s, athletic and confident, and she moved with the authority of someone accustomed to command. "I'm Jennifer Blackwood, defense attorney, and I just witnessed you commit multiple felonies." Travis's face went pale. Danny was openly panicking now, backing toward the Dodge Challenger. "Where you going, Danny?" another biker called out, moving his motorcycle to block the exit. "Party's just getting started." Marcus pulled his phone from his pocket. "I'm calling the sheriff. You three are going to wait right here until they arrive, and if you try to run, or if you make one move toward that woman or her kids, my brothers and sisters here are going to make sure you regret it. We clear?" "Crystal," whispered Ray, all the fight draining out of him. As Marcus dialed, another biker, a lean man in his 30s with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor that contrasted with his intimidating appearance, approached Amanda's car. "Name's Tommy Chen," he said softly. "I'm a paramedic. Are you or your kids injured? Do you need medical attention?" Amanda shook her head, tears flowing freely now, not from fear anymore, but from the overwhelming relief of being safe, of being protected by these unexpected guardians. "We're okay, just shaken up." "That's completely normal," Tommy said. "You experienced a traumatic event. Do you have anyone you can call, family or friends?" The question made Amanda laugh bitterly. Her parents had passed away years ago. Her sister lived in Oregon, and most of her friends were colleagues from the hospital who had their own families and problems. She was alone, just like Travis had correctly identified. "No," she admitted. "It's just us." Tommy exchanged a look with Marcus, who had just finished his call with the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. "Deputies are on their way," Marcus announced. "Should be here in about 15 minutes. He walked over to Travis and held out his hand. "The money. Now." Travis hesitated for only a second before pulling the crumpled bills from his pocket and handing them over. Marcus counted them carefully, $43 exactly, and then walked over to Amanda, pressing the money into her hand. "This is yours," he said gently. Amanda looked down at the money, then back up at this stranger who had appeared out of nowhere, like an answer to a prayer she hadn't even known she was praying. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know how to thank you." "No thanks necessary, ma'am. We just did what anyone should do." Marcus glanced back at his assembled club members, men and women from all walks of life, united by their love of riding and their commitment to each other. "The desert riders might have a rough reputation, but we take care of our own, and tonight, you're one of our own." Jennifer Blackwood joined them, notebook in hand. I'd like to get your statement if that's okay, and I want you to know that I'll be making sure the district attorney prosecutes these guys to the fullest extent of the law. What they did to you was inexcusable. I appreciate that, Amanda said, but I can't afford an attorney. I'm not asking for payment, Jennifer said firmly. This is personal. I was a single mom once, too. I know how hard it is, how vulnerable you can feel. Nobody should have to go through what you just experienced. In the back seat, Dylan had finally stopped crying, though his face was still pressed against the window, watching the bikers with a mixture of awe and confusion. Grace had fallen asleep again, her stuffed rabbit clutched tightly to her chest, blissfully unaware of how close they had come to real danger. Over the next 15 minutes, as they waited for the sheriff's deputies to arrive, Amanda learned more about the Desert Riders Motorcycle Club. They were a diverse group. Veterans like Marcus, professionals like Jennifer and Tommy, blue-collar workers, small business owners, even a few teachers and nurses. What united them was their love of riding and their commitment to community service. We do a lot of charity work, explained Marcus, as they sat on the curb together, far enough from the three subdued criminals, but close enough to keep watch. Toy drives for kids at Christmas, fundraisers for veterans with PTSD, escort services for funeral processions. We're not the Hells Angels or the Bandidos. We're just people who found a family in each other. I had no idea, Amanda admitted. I always thought motorcycle clubs were, well, dangerous. Marcus chuckled. Some are. There are definitely outlaw clubs out there that give the rest of us a bad name. But most of us are just regular folks who happen to love bikes and brotherhood. Though I'll admit, our reputation can come in handy sometimes. He gestured toward Travis, Ray, and Danny, who were sitting on the ground under the watchful eyes of several large, intimidating bikers. Those guys took one look at our numbers and knew they were outmatched. Where were you all coming from? Amanda asked. It seemed like you appeared out of nowhere. Monthly ride, Marcus explained. We do a long haul once a month, all members who can make it. Tonight, we rode from Phoenix up through the mountains, and we're heading back home to Prescott Valley. Pure coincidence that we stopped here, but I believe in fate. We were meant to be here tonight. Amanda wanted to believe in fate too, wanted to believe that the universe had sent these protectors at exactly the right moment. But she had stopped believing in divine intervention around the same time her husband left. Still, she couldn't deny that the timing was remarkable. The sheriff's deputies arrived in 2 patrol cars, lights flashing but sirens silent. The lead deputy, a weathered man in his 50s named Garrett Mitchell, greeted Marcus with a familiarity that spoke of prior interactions. Marcus Sullivan, I should have known you'd be involved somehow, Deputy Mitchell said, though there was no malice in his tone. What do we have here? Marcus stepped back and let Amanda tell her story. She recounted everything: the initial approach, the threats, the theft, the humiliating comments about her being a single mother. Jennifer provided corroborating testimony as a witness, and several other Desert Riders members confirmed what they had seen when they arrived. Deputy Mitchell listened carefully, taking notes, and then approached the 3 suspects. Travis was read his rights and handcuffed, followed by Ray and Danny. The younger man was openly crying now, apparently realizing the severity of his situation. Armed robbery, assault, terroristic threats, Deputy Mitchell listed off. You boys picked the wrong victim and the wrong night. The district attorney is going to have a field day with this case. As the deputies loaded the 3 men into their patrol cars, Deputy Mitchell returned to Amanda. I'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement and press charges. Can you do that? Yes, of course, Amanda said, her voice steadier now. Good. And ma'am? Deputy Mitchell's expression softened. I'm sorry this happened to you, but you're damn lucky these folks showed up when they did. I know, Amanda said, looking at the assembled bikers who had stayed throughout the entire ordeal. I'm very aware of how lucky I am. After the patrol cars pulled away, taking Travis, Ray, and Danny to the county jail, the tension that had been gripping the gas station finally began to dissipate. Several of the bikers mounted their motorcycles, preparing to continue their journey home. But Marcus remained, as did Jennifer, Tommy, and a handful of others. "You going to be okay to drive home?" Tommy asked Amanda gently. "That was a traumatic experience. Sometimes the adrenaline wears off and people get shaky." Amanda considered this. Her hands were trembling slightly and she did feel lightheaded. But Dylan and Grace needed to get home and into their beds. They had school tomorrow and she had another shift at the hospital in less than 10 hours. "I'll be fine," she said, trying to sound confident. "It's not far." Marcus exchanged a look with Jennifer, then turned back to Amanda. "How about this? A couple of us will escort you home, just to make sure you get there safe. No pressure, just peace of mind." Amanda's first instinct was to refuse, to insist she could handle it alone like she handled everything else. But then she thought about Dylan's terrified face and Grace's innocent trust that her mother would always protect her, and she realized that accepting help wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. "I'd appreciate that," she said quietly. "Thank you." Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his stern features into something warm and approachable. "It's settled then. Tommy, Jennifer, and I will ride with her. The rest of you head home. Good riding tonight, everyone." A chorus of "good night" and "ride safe" echoed through the parking lot as the majority of the desert riders fired up their engines and pulled out onto Route 89, their taillights disappearing into the Arizona night like a river of red stars. Amanda buckled herself back into her Honda Civic, checking on Dylan and Grace in the rearview mirror. Dylan was awake and alert, his eyes following Marcus as the biker mounted his massive Harley Davidson. "Mom, are those the good guys?" Dylan asked, his voice small and uncertain. Amanda thought about how to answer, how to explain to a 9-year-old that the world was more complicated than good guys and bad guys, that sometimes angels wore leather and rode motorcycles, that help could come from the most unexpected places. "Yes, baby," she said simply. "They're the good guys." With Marcus leading the way, his bike's headlight cutting through the darkness, and Jennifer and Tommy flanking her car on either side, Amanda pulled out of Murphy's gas station and headed home. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't feel alone. The Yavapai County Courthouse was an imposing structure of red brick and white columns built in the 1920s during Prescott Valley's mining boom. Amanda climbed the wide stone steps with Dylan and Grace in tow, her stomach churning with anxiety. She had already missed 3 hours of her morning shift to be here, and her supervisor hadn't been pleased about it, even after Amanda explained the circumstances. Inside, the building was all polished marble floors and echoing hallways that smelled faintly of old paper and furniture polish. Amanda checked the directory and found District Attorney's office on the 3rd floor. Her cheap flats clicked against the stairs as they climbed, Dylan gripping her left hand and Grace her right. The DA's office was a maze of cubicles and filing cabinets presided over by a receptionist who looked like she had been working there since the building opened. The nameplate on her desk read Doris Carmichael, and she peered at Amanda over reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. "I'm Amanda Foster," Amanda said. "I have an appointment with Assistant District Attorney Rebecca." She stopped herself, remembering the space instructions. I'm here to give a statement about an incident that occurred 2 nights ago." Doris consulted her computer. "Ah, yes, the Murphy's gas station robbery. Jennifer Blackwood called ahead. She's already inside with ADA Catherine Morrison. Have a seat, please. They'll call you shortly." Amanda settled into an uncomfortable plastic chair, Dylan and Grace on either side of her. She had brought coloring books and crayons to keep them occupied, and they bent over their pages with the intense concentration that only children could muster. 10 minutes later, Jennifer Blackwood emerged from one of the interior offices, looking professional and polished in a navy suit. Her face lit up when she saw Amanda. "You made it," Jennifer said warmly. "How are you holding up?" "Okay, I guess," Amanda admitted. "I didn't sleep much last night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing Travis Kane's face." Jennifer's expression turned sympathetic. "That's a completely normal response to trauma. Have you considered speaking with a counselor?" Amanda almost laughed. Counseling was a luxury for people with good insurance and time to spare. She had neither. "I'll be fine," she said instead. "If you change your mind, I know some excellent therapists who work on a sliding scale." Jennifer pressed gently. Then she turned her attention to Dylan and Grace. "And how are you two doing?" "Good," Dylan said solemnly. "Mom said we get to tell the police what happened. I'm going to tell them about the scary men and about how the motorcycle people saved us." "That's very brave of you," Jennifer said. "Your mom is lucky to have such a strong young man looking out for her." Dylan straightened up at that, his chest puffing out with pride. Catherine Morrison turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her early 40s, with prematurely grey hair pulled back in a tight bun. She shook Amanda's hand with a firm grip and ushered them into a conference room lined with law books and featuring a long table that could have seated 20 people. "Ms. Foster, thank you for coming in," Catherine said. "I've already spoken with Ms. Blackwood and reviewed the initial police reports, but I need to hear the events from your perspective to build the strongest possible case." For the next hour, Amanda recounted every detail of that night. The exhaustion from her double shift, the decision to stop for gas, the way Travis and his companions had emerged from the shadows like predators. She described Travis's grip on her wrist, Ray's cruel laughter, Danny's nervous energy. She talked about the fear, the humiliation, the feeling of utter helplessness as they mocked her for being a single mother. Catherine took meticulous notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Dylan provided his own testimony, his young voice shaking as he described watching the men hurt his mother. Grace was too young to contribute much, but Catherine was patient and kind with her anyway. "This is an excellent case," Catherine said when they were finished. "We have multiple witnesses, physical evidence in the form of security camera footage from the gas station, and the defendants were caught red-handed by law enforcement. Travis Kane, Ray Hutchins, and Danny Cortez are being charged with armed robbery, assault, and several other counts. Given their criminal histories, especially Kane's, I'm confident we can secure significant prison time." "How long?" Amanda asked. "Kane has priors, so he's looking at 5 to 10 years minimum. Hutchins and Cortez might get lighter sentences if they agree to testify against Kane, but they're still looking at substantial time behind bars." The numbers should have made Amanda feel better, but instead, she just felt tired. What good would it do for those men to rot in prison? It wouldn't erase the trauma, wouldn't give her back the sense of security she'd lost. As if reading her thoughts, Jennifer leaned forward. "I know it doesn't feel like justice right now," she said gently. "But getting these guys off the streets means they can't do this to someone else. You're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting every other woman who might have crossed their path." That perspective helped a little. After the meeting, Jennifer walked Amanda and the kids back to the courthouse steps. The afternoon sun was blazing, temperature already climbing toward the mid-90s, despite it being only April. "There's something else I wanted to talk to you about," Jennifer said. "The Desert Riders are organizing a fundraiser for you. We do this sometimes when club members or community members face hardship. It's called a benefit run. People pay to participate in a group ride, and all the proceeds go to you." Amanda felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "That's very kind, but I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Jennifer said firmly. "It's community support. There's a difference. You were victimized and we want to help. Please, Let us do this." Amanda wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain her pride and independence, but she thought about the $43 currently sitting in her wallet, money she'd already mentally allocated to Dylan's new shoes. She thought about the mortgage payment due in 2 days and the fact that she'd just missed 3 hours of work. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." Jennifer squeezed her hand. "The ride is scheduled for next Saturday. Marcus is organizing it personally. He'll be in touch with details." That evening, after Amanda had fed the kids dinner and tucked them into bed, she sat alone in her small living room and allowed herself to cry. Not from fear or pain, but from the overwhelming strangeness of the past 48 hours. She had spent 2 years building walls around herself and her children, convinced that relying on others only led to disappointment and heartbreak. But now those walls had cracks, and light was seeping through. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi Amanda, this is Marcus Sullivan from the Desert Riders. Jennifer gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." Amanda stared at the message for a long moment before typing a response. "Hi Marcus, I'm doing okay, all things considered. Thank you again for everything the other night." The reply came quickly. "No thanks needed. Listen, I know you're probably overwhelmed right now, but I wanted to invite you to our clubhouse this Thursday evening. We're having a planning meeting for the benefit ride, and we'd love for you to be there. No pressure, but it might help to meet some more of the club members in a less stressful situation." Amanda's first instinct was to decline. She had work, she had kids, she had a million responsibilities that didn't include socializing with motorcycle clubs. But something made her pause. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was gratitude, maybe it was just the desperate loneliness of 2 years spent with no adult companionship beyond her co-workers. "What time?" she texted back. 7 p.m. I can pick you up if you need a ride." Amanda thought about showing up to a motorcycle clubhouse on the back of Marcus Sullivan's bike and nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. "I'll drive myself. Send me the address." Marcus sent the location, a warehouse in an industrial part of Prescott Valley that had been converted into the Desert Riders Clubhouse. Amanda saved the address and set a reminder on her phone. Thursday arrived faster than she expected. Amanda arranged for Mrs. Henderson, her elderly neighbor, to watch Dylan and Grace for a few hours. The woman was delighted to help, thrilled by the drama of Amanda's story, which had already made the local news. The Desert Riders Clubhouse was exactly what Amanda had imagined. A large metal building with dozens of motorcycles parked outside and the club's logo painted on the side in bold letters. Music drifted from inside, classic rock that made the walls vibrate. Amanda parked her Honda among the Harleys and Triumphs, feeling distinctly out of place. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, having changed out of her scrubs after her shift. Her hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, hung loose around her shoulders. The interior of the clubhouse was surprisingly welcoming. One half was set up like a bar, complete with pool tables and a dartboard, while the other half contained meeting tables and chairs. The walls were decorated with motorcycle memorabilia, vintage signs, and photographs of past rides and events. Marcus spotted her immediately and crossed the room with a warm smile. "You came," he said, and there was genuine pleasure in his voice. "I said I would," Amanda replied. "Come on, I'll introduce you around." For the next hour, Amanda met Desert Riders members whose names blurred together in a whirlwind of handshakes and friendly faces. There was Big Mike, the sergeant-at-arms she'd met at the gas station, Christine Rodriguez, who owned a small bakery in town, James and Patricia Thornton, a married couple who had been riding together for 20 years, Kevin Walsh, a high school history teacher who looked nothing like a biker without his leather vest. They were, Amanda realized with some surprise, just normal people. They had jobs and families and mortgages. They worried about their kids and their aging parents. They complained about traffic and rising grocery prices. The motorcycles were just one aspect of their lives, not their entire identity. The planning meeting for the benefit ride was efficient and well organized. Marcus, acting as president, laid out the route. A scenic loop through the mountains, about 100 miles total. Participants would pay a $50 registration fee, and local businesses had already donated prizes for a raffle. Christine was organizing food for a barbecue at the end of the ride. "We're hoping to raise at least $5,000, Marcus explained, directing this to Amanda. "That should help cover immediate expenses and give you a bit of breathing room." $5,000. The number was staggering. It would pay her mortgage for 3 months, replace Dylan's shoes and Grace's outgrown clothes, refill all their prescriptions, maybe even allow for a small savings cushion. "I don't know what to say," Amanda managed. "Say you'll come to the ride," Jennifer suggested. "You don't have to participate in the ride itself if you're not comfortable, but come to the barbecue after. Let people see who they're helping." Amanda agreed, though the thought of being the center of attention made her uncomfortable. After the meeting concluded, most members headed to the bar area, but Marcus gestured for Amanda to follow him outside. They walked to a small patio behind the clubhouse, where a few picnic tables sat under string lights that provided a soft glow against the darkening sky. "You doing okay?" Marcus asked as they settled onto one of the benches. "Really okay, I mean. Not the polite answer you give when people ask." Amanda considered lying, maintaining the facade of strength she'd perfected over 2 years of single motherhood. But something about Marcus's steady gaze and genuine concern made her want to be honest. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of Travis and his friends, they're in jail, but I'm scared of how close we came to disaster. What if you hadn't shown up? What if they'd hurt Dylan or Grace? What if they'd done worse than just rob me?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Those are valid fears. Trauma has a way of showing us how fragile everything really is. You sound like you speak from experience." "2 tours in Afghanistan," Marcus said quietly. "I came home with PTSD that nearly destroyed me. I was angry all the time, couldn't hold down a job, pushed away everyone who tried to help. My wife left, took our daughter. I hit rock bottom about 6 years ago." "What changed?" Amanda asked. "I found the Desert Riders. Or maybe they found me. Big Mike was in my platoon in the Marines. He dragged me to a club meeting one day, said I needed to be around brothers who understood, and it worked. Slowly, I put my life back together. Got into therapy, made amends with my ex-wife, started rebuilding my relationship with my daughter. The club gave me purpose and community when I had nothing else." "Where's your daughter now?" "Megan's at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. She's 22, studying environmental science. We have dinner once a month, and she comes to some of the club events. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was." Amanda studied Marcus's profile in the soft light, seeing the lines around his eyes that spoke of pain survived and wisdom earned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that you're not alone. I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning, like you have to be strong all the time for everyone else, but you don't have to carry everything by yourself. That's what community is for." "I've been alone for a long time," Amanda said softly. "I'm not sure I remember how to let people in." "Start small," Marcus suggested. "Come to the benefit ride. Let us help you. See where it goes from there." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and music from inside the clubhouse. Amanda felt something shift inside her, like a door that had been locked for years, finally creaking open. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll try." Marcus smiled, and in that moment Amanda realized that maybe, just maybe, she had found something she didn't even know she was looking for. Not romance or rescue, but genuine human connection. A reminder that she was more than just a struggling single mother, more than just the sum of her responsibilities and fears. She was part of a community now, and that made all the difference. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright, the Arizona sky a brilliant expanse of unbroken blue. Amanda woke early, nerves fluttering in her stomach like a cage of butterflies. Today was the benefit ride, and despite Marcus's reassurances, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was imposing on these people's generosity. Dylan and Grace, however, were thrilled. Ever since the incident at the gas station, Dylan had become fascinated with motorcycles and the desert riders. He had drawn pictures of them in his school notebooks and announced to his third-grade class that bikers had saved his mum. Grace, with the adaptability of a 6-year-old, had simply accepted their new friends as part of her world. "Can we ride on a motorcycle?" Dylan asked as Amanda made breakfast. "Absolutely not," Amanda said firmly. "Those bikes are dangerous." "But Mom, Marcus said he'd teach me to ride when I'm older. He said he taught his daughter." Amanda made a mental note to have a conversation with Marcus about making promises to her children without consulting her first. But even as she thought it, she felt the sting of hypocrisy. Wasn't that what parents with partners did? Share decision-making, present a united front? She'd been solo for so long that the idea of co-parenting, even informally, felt foreign. They arrived at the Desert Riders Clubhouse at 10 o'clock to find it transformed. The parking lot was filled with motorcycles, not just the club's usual 24 bikes, but easily over 100. Riders from all over Arizona had come to participate, drawn by the Desert Riders' reputation and the cause itself. A registration table had been set up near the entrance, manned by Christine Rodriguez and another club member named Angela Prieto. Behind them, a banner read, "Amanda Foster Benefit Ride," in bold letters that made Amanda's cheeks flush. Marcus appeared almost immediately, looking wind-swept and energized in his riding gear. "You made it," he said, his whole face lighting up. "Come on, I'll show you around." The atmosphere was festival-like. Someone had set up a sound system playing classic rock, and food vendors were preparing for the post-ride barbecue. Tables held raffle prizes donated by local businesses, restaurant gift cards, automotive services, a new television, even a weekend stay at a resort in Sedona. "This is too much," Amanda protested. "I can't accept all this." "You're not accepting it, you're receiving it," Marcus corrected gently. "There's a difference. These people aren't here out of pity. They're here because what happened to you was wrong. And this is how our community responds to injustice." Jennifer Blackwood joined them, already wearing her riding gear and looking far more badass than any defense attorney had a right to look. "Amanda, I'm so glad you came. Have you met Sheriff Tom Beckett yet?" Amanda turned to find herself face to face with the county sheriff himself, a tall man in his 60s with a thick mustache and kind eyes. "Ms. Foster," Sheriff Beckett said, extending his hand, "I wanted to personally apologize that those men targeted you. My department should have caught them sooner. We'd been tracking their activities, but they were always one step ahead." "It's not your fault," Amanda said automatically. "Still, I wanted you to know that we take these crimes seriously, and I wanted to thank the Desert Riders for their assistance. They've been valuable community partners for years." He nodded respectfully to Marcus, who returned the gesture. As more participants arrived, Amanda found herself swept up in a whirlwind of introductions and well wishes. There were riders from other clubs, solo bikers, even a few people who had driven cars to show support. Tommy Chen introduced her to his husband, David, a graphic designer who had created the event flyers. Big Mike's wife, Carol, brought over her daughter, Jasmine, who was the same age as Dylan, and immediately challenged him to a game of tag. At 11 o'clock sharp, Marcus called for everyone's attention. He stood on a makeshift platform, his presence commanding immediate silence. "Brothers, sisters, and friends," he began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today." The Desert Riders was founded on 3 principles: freedom, loyalty, and community service. Today is about that 3rd principle. A member of our community was victimized, and we're here to show that in Yavapai County, we take care of our own. A cheer went up from the assembled crowd. The ride today is approximately 100 miles through some of the most beautiful country in Arizona. We'll head north through the mountains, stop at Vista Point for a break, and then loop back here for food and fellowship. Remember to ride safe, watch out for your brothers and sisters, and represent our community with honor. Marcus's eyes found Amanda in the crowd. "Amanda Foster, would you come up here, please?" Amanda's heart lurched. Public speaking was her nightmare, worse than double shifts in the ER during flu season. But Dylan was looking at her with wide, proud eyes, and Grace was tugging on her hand, saying, "Go on, Mama." So Amanda found herself climbing onto the platform on shaky legs. Marcus handed her a microphone, and she stared at it like it might bite her. I don't know what to say," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm not good at speeches." "Just speak from the heart," Marcus murmured, so quietly that only she could hear. Amanda took a deep breath and looked out at the sea of faces, young and old, men and women, people from all walks of life united by their compassion. "2 weeks ago, I was at my lowest point," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I was exhausted from working double shifts, worried about money, scared about the future. And then 3 men decided to make my bad day worse. They robbed me and humiliated me in front of my children. I felt helpless and alone." She paused, collecting her thoughts. But then the Desert Riders appeared. Marcus and his club members didn't have to stop. They could have kept riding and left me to deal with my problems alone. But they didn't. They protected me and my kids. They made sure those criminals faced justice. And now they're doing all this. She gestured at the assembled riders and the event setup. "I've spent the last 2 years thinking I had to be strong enough to handle everything by myself. I thought accepting help was weakness, but I was wrong. Real strength is knowing when to let others in. Real courage is being vulnerable enough to accept kindness. So thank you. Thank you to the Desert Riders. Thank you to everyone who came today, and thank you for reminding me that I'm not alone." The applause was deafening. Dylan was jumping up and down, clapping so hard his hands had to hurt. Grace had tears streaming down her little face, though she was smiling. As Amanda stepped down from the platform, she was immediately engulfed in hugs from Jennifer, Christine, and several other women from the club. Marcus gave her a nod of approval that somehow meant more than all the applause. The riders began mounting their motorcycles, engines roaring to life in a symphony of mechanical power. Marcus had offered to let Amanda ride with him if she wanted to participate in the actual ride, but she had declined, preferring to wait with the kids at the clubhouse. Some things were still too far outside her comfort zone. As the motorcycles pulled out in a long, impressive procession, the sound was thunderous. Amanda stood with Dylan and Grace, watching them go. Her son's eyes were shining with hero worship, and Amanda knew she'd be hearing requests for a motorcycle of his own for years to come. The clubhouse felt oddly quiet, with most of the riders gone. The volunteers who had stayed behind to prepare food and set up the raffle bustled about, but there was a peaceful lull. Amanda helped where she could, arranging tables and setting out condiments, grateful for the distraction. About 2 hours later, the motorcycles began returning. The riders looked exhilarated, their faces flushed from the wind and sun. Marcus dismounted with the fluid grace she was coming to recognize, pulling off his helmet and running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. "Great ride," he announced to the crowd. "Perfect weather, no incidents, and we made good time." The barbecue was a festive affair. Burgers and hot dogs sizzled on massive grills while sides of potato salad, coleslaw, and baked beans appeared as if by magic. Someone had brought a chocolate cake with "Welcome to the family, Amanda" written in icing, which made her tear up again. As people ate and socialized, Amanda found herself at a picnic table with Marcus, Jennifer, Tommy, Big Mike, and several others. Dylan and Grace were playing with other children nearby, their laughter carrying on the breeze. "So, Amanda," Big Mike said, his voice a rumbling bass. "Marcus tells us you're a nurse." "I am. I work in the ER at Yavapai Regional." "That's hard work," Christine said admiringly. "My sister's a nurse. The stories she tells, it can be challenging," Amanda admitted. "But I love it. There's something about being there for people during their worst moments, helping them heal. It feels important." "Sounds like you and the club have that in common," Tommy observed. "We show up when people need us most." The conversation flowed easily, and Amanda realized she was actually enjoying herself. These people had started as strangers, had become her protectors, and were now becoming something more. Friends. As the afternoon wore on, it was time for the raffle drawing. The proceeds from ticket sales alone would add another couple $1,000s to the total amount raised. Amanda watched as prizes were drawn and winners celebrated, feeling overwhelmed by the generosity of it all. Finally, Marcus called for attention one last time. He held an envelope that Amanda recognized with a jolt of anxiety. "Before everyone heads out, I want to present Amanda with the proceeds from today's event." He opened the envelope and pulled out a check, reading the amount aloud, $7,842. Amanda felt her knees go weak. That was nearly 3 times what Marcus had estimated. That was life-changing. She accepted the check with shaking hands, staring at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves. "I can't. You can, and you will," Marcus said firmly. "You deserve this, Amanda. Use it to take care of yourself and those beautiful kids." The crowd erupted in applause again, and Amanda found herself crying in earnest now, not bothering to hide the tears. Dylan rushed over and hugged her around the waist, followed quickly by Grace. As the event wound down and participants began departing, Amanda lingered, helping clean up despite protests that she was the guest of honor. It felt important to contribute something, even if it was just collecting trash and wiping down tables. Marcus worked alongside her, and they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Finally, when the clubhouse was back in order and most everyone had left, he walked her to her car. "Thank you," Amanda said, knowing the words were inadequate but needing to say them anyway. "I don't think I'll ever be able to fully express what this means to me." "You already did with your speech," Marcus replied. That took guts, being that honest in front of everyone. "I learned from the best," Amanda said, thinking of Marcus's own vulnerability when he shared his story with her. Dylan came running up, interrupting the moment. "Mom, can Marcus teach me about motorcycles, please?" Marcus looked at Amanda, waiting for her permission. She appreciated that. "Maybe someday," Amanda said carefully, "when you're much older." "I'll hold you to that," Marcus said with a wink at Dylan, then turned back to Amanda. "Listen, I know you've had a long day, but before you go, I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in joining us for dinner sometime. Nothing fancy, just the core members and their families. We do it once a month. It's how we stay connected beyond the rides." Amanda felt Dylan tugging on her sleeve, his eyes pleading. Grace had already fallen asleep in her arms, exhausted from the day's excitement. "I'd like that," Amanda heard herself say, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "Good," Marcus said, and his smile was genuine and warm. "I'll text you the details." As Amanda drove home that evening, Dylan chattering excitedly about motorcycles and bikers and how cool everything was, she caught her own reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. For the first time in 2 years, she looked hopeful. 3 months later, Amanda stood in the kitchen of her small house, preparing potato salad for the Desert Riders' monthly family dinner. It was her turn to host, something she had volunteered for, despite the fact that her home was considerably smaller than most of the other members' houses. Dylan and Grace were in the living room, cleaning up in preparation for guests. Dylan had taken his role as co-host very seriously, reorganizing the furniture 3 times to maximize seating. Grace was arranging her stuffed animals on her bed, determined to give tours of her room to anyone who asked. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 o'clock. Marcus stood on her doorstep holding a casserole dish, looking slightly uncomfortable in civilian clothes, jeans and a button-down shirt, instead of his usual leather and denim. "You're early," Amanda said, stepping aside to let him in. "Thought you might need help setting up," Marcus replied. "Plus, I wanted to give you this before everyone else arrives." He set down the casserole dish and pulled a small wrapped package from his jacket pocket. Amanda took it hesitantly, unused to receiving gifts. "Marcus, you didn't have to. Just open it." Inside was a silver bracelet, simple and elegant, with a small charm in the shape of a motorcycle wheel. "It's beautiful," Amanda breathed. "All the Desert Riders women have one," Marcus explained. "It's a symbol of membership, of family. I wanted you to have yours." Amanda felt tears prickling at her eyes, something that happened a lot more easily these days, though they were usually happy tears now. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus helped her fasten it around her wrist, his fingers gentle and careful. For a moment they stood close together in her small kitchen, and Amanda felt the air shift between them, something unspoken but understood. The moment was broken by Dylan bursting into the kitchen. "Is anyone else here yet? I want to show Big Mike my new baseball glove." Soon, the house was filled with Desert Riders members and their families. Big Mike and Carol brought their daughter Jasmine and their son, 12-year-old Marcus Jr., who immediately recruited Dylan for a video game tournament. Jennifer Blackwood arrived with her teenage daughter Sophie, a quiet girl with her mother's sharp eyes and quick wit. Tommy Chen and his husband David brought homemade spring rolls that disappeared within minutes. Christine Rodriguez arrived with enough baked goods to feed an army, and Kevin Walsh, the history teacher, brought his wife Patricia and their twin 10-year-old boys. Even Sheriff Beckett stopped by briefly, off-duty and relaxed, joking with the members like old friends. Amanda moved through her crowded home, feeling simultaneously overwhelmed and deeply content. This was what community looked like, messy and loud and full of laughter, children running underfoot and adults swapping stories over beer and lemonade. After dinner, as the kids played outside in the warm Arizona evening and the adults settled into conversation, Jennifer pulled Amanda aside. "I have news about your case," she said. "The trial concluded yesterday." Amanda's stomach tightened. She had been trying not to think about Travis Kane and his accomplices, though she still occasionally woke from nightmares about that night at the gas station. Travis Kane was sentenced to 8 years in state prison, Jennifer continued. Ray Hutchins got 5 years, and Danny Cortez got 3 years plus probation since he cooperated with the prosecution and had no prior record. 8 years, Amanda repeated, trying to process the number. "It's not forever," Jennifer acknowledged. "But it's significant time, and they'll be on the sex offender registry since the charges included elements of intimidation and assault on a woman. That will follow them for life." Amanda nodded slowly. She didn't feel vindicated exactly, but she felt something, a sense of closure perhaps, justice served even if it couldn't erase what had happened. "Thank you," she said to Jennifer, "for everything you did to make sure they were held accountable." "That's what family does," Jennifer replied simply. As the evening wore on and guests began departing, Marcus stayed behind to help clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, Amanda washing dishes while Marcus dried and put them away. "You've really found your place here," Marcus observed. "With the club, I mean. I can see how much more relaxed you are compared to 3 months ago." "I feel different," Amanda admitted. lighter somehow. Like I've been carrying this weight for so long I forgot it was there, and now someone's helped me set it down. That's what community does, Marcus said, echoing Jennifer's earlier words. We share the load. Amanda finished the last dish and dried her hands, turning to face Marcus. He was leaning against her counter, studying her with those steady grey eyes that seemed to see more than most people. Can I ask you something? Amanda said, her heart suddenly pounding. Anything. That night at the gas station, why did you stop, really? You could have just kept riding. Most people would have. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, considering his answer carefully. I stopped because I saw someone who needed help, and I had the power to provide it. But honestly, I think I also stopped for selfish reasons. Helping you helped me remember why I do this, why I built this club, why I work so hard to create community. It reminded me that we all need each other, that none of us can make it alone. We're not alone anymore, Amanda said softly. No, Marcus agreed. We're not. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture tender and intimate. Amanda's breath caught, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her. But instead he just smiled. I should go, he said. Early ride tomorrow. Right, of course. But neither of them moved. They stood in Amanda's small kitchen, the space between them charged with possibility and promise. Amanda, Marcus said finally, would you like to go to dinner with me? Just the two of us, I mean. Not a club thing. A date. Amanda felt a smile spreading across her face, genuine and unreserved. 3 months ago, she would have said no automatically, would have convinced herself she didn't have time for romance, that she needed to focus solely on her children and her work. But she was learning that life didn't have to be quite so narrow, that she could make room for joy and connection. I'd like that very much, she said. Marcus's answering grin transformed his whole face. Saturday night? I'll pick you up at 7. It's a date. After Marcus left, Amanda checked on Dylan and Grace. Both were already asleep, worn out from the excitement of hosting. She kissed their foreheads gently, filled with overwhelming love for these two small humans who had given her life purpose and meaning. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Tonight was great. Your home is beautiful because it's filled with love. See you Saturday. Amanda smiled and typed back, thank you for everything, for saving us that night, for bringing us into your family, for reminding me that it's okay to need people. See you Saturday. She got ready for bed, catching sight of the silver bracelet on her wrist. The motorcycle wheel charm glinted in the light, a symbol of the journey she'd taken, from terrified victim to empowered survivor, to valued member of a community she hadn't known she needed. The Saturday date turned into a regular thing. Marcus and Amanda started seeing each other consistently, carefully and deliberately building something real. He came to Dylan's baseball games and Grace's dance recitals. She attended more club events and learned about motorcycle maintenance. They took things slowly, both of them scarred by previous relationships and determined not to rush. 6 months after their first date, Marcus introduced Amanda formally to his daughter Megan during one of her visits home from college. The young woman was warm and welcoming, telling Amanda stories about her father's transformation through the desert riders. He was so lost when I was growing up, Megan confided over coffee while Marcus was outside with Dylan and Grace. The war really messed him up, but the club saved him. And now you've made him even better, more open, more willing to be vulnerable. I haven't seen him this happy in years. He's made me better too, Amanda admitted. I was so closed off, so convinced I had to do everything alone. He showed me a different way. A year after the incident at Murphy's gas station, the Desert Riders held their annual charity gala, a formal fundraiser for veterans with PTSD. Amanda wore a blue dress that Marcus had helped her pick out, and she felt beautiful for the first time in years. The event was held at a hotel ballroom in Phoenix, attended by club members, local politicians, business owners, and community leaders. Sheriff Beckett gave a speech about the Desert Riders' positive impact on Yavapai County. Jennifer Blackwood received an award for her pro bono legal work. Tommy Chen was recognized for his volunteer paramedic services, and Marcus, as club president, took the stage to thunderous applause. "A year ago," he began, his voice carrying clearly across the ballroom, "the Desert Riders intervened in a robbery at a gas station. We protected a woman and her children from criminals who wanted to prey on their vulnerability. That incident reminded all of us why we exist, not just to ride motorcycles, but to serve our community and protect those who need protection." His eyes found Amanda in the crowd, and he smiled. "That woman, Amanda Foster, has become an integral part of our family. She's shown us the same courage and resilience that we try to embody. She's proof that strength comes not from never falling, but from getting back up with the help of those who care about you." The room erupted in applause, and Amanda felt her face flush with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. After the gala, Marcus drove Amanda home through the quiet Arizona night. They had left Dylan and Grace with Mrs. Henderson, who had become a regular babysitter and a beloved figure in their lives. "Move in with me," Marcus said suddenly as they pulled into Amanda's driveway. Amanda turned to stare at him. "What?" "Move in with me, you and Dylan and Grace. My house has 4 bedrooms, plenty of space for everyone. We're together all the time anyway, it just makes sense." "Marcus, we've only been dating for 6 months. I know, and if it's too soon, I understand. But Amanda, I love you. I love your kids. I want us to be a family, officially. Not just dating, not just spending time together, but really building a life." Amanda's heart was racing. A year ago, this proposal would have terrified her, would have seemed impossible. But now, sitting in the car with this man who had become her partner, her confidant, her safe harbor, it felt right. "I love you too," she said, and watched Marcus's face light up. "And yes, let's do it. Let's build a family." Moving day arrived on a crisp fall morning, the Arizona heat finally breaking into something manageable. Big Mike, Tommy, Kevin, and several other Desert Riders members showed up with trucks to help transport Amanda's belongings to Marcus's house. A spacious ranch-style home on the outskirts of Prescott Valley with a large yard and a garage that held his collection of motorcycles. Dylan and Grace were thrilled with their new rooms. Dylan immediately claimed the one with a view of the mountains, plastering the walls with posters of motorcycles and baseball players. Grace transformed her space into a princess castle, with help from Christine, who brought over pink curtains and fairy lights. That evening, after the last box had been unpacked and the helpers had left, Marcus, Amanda, Dylan, and Grace sat together on the back porch watching the sun set over the desert landscape. The sky was painted in brilliant shades of orange and purple, the kind of sunset that reminded you why people loved Arizona. "This is nice," Dylan said contentedly, leaning against Marcus's side. In the past year, he had bonded deeply with Marcus, seeing in him a father figure he barely remembered having. "Very nice," Grace agreed, snuggled into Amanda's lap. Marcus reached over and took Amanda's hand, his thumb tracing the outline of the silver bracelet she never took off. "Welcome home," he said quietly. Amanda looked at the 4 of them, her children, her partner, their blended family, and felt a sense of peace so profound it almost hurt. A year and a half ago, she had been alone and terrified at a gas station, convinced she would always be struggling and isolated. But she had been wrong. She had found community, had found love, had found a family in the most unexpected place. The Desert Riders had saved her that night, but in truth, they had done more than that. They had shown her that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that accepting help wasn't failure, that she deserved to be protected and cherished and supported. "Welcome home," she echoed, squeezing Marcus's hand. As darkness fell over the Arizona desert and stars began appearing in the vast sky, Amanda Foster felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete and utter contentment. The road behind her had been difficult, marked by loss and hardship and fear. But the road ahead stretched out full of promise: adventures with her family, rides through the mountains with the desert riders, a life filled with love and community and purpose. She had been saved by bikers on a lonely highway, but in the end, she had saved herself by having the courage to let them in, to accept their help, to become part of something bigger than her own struggles. And that made all the difference. 6 months later, on a perfect spring morning, Marcus and Amanda married in a small ceremony at the Desert Riders Clubhouse. Dylan served as best man, and Grace was the flower girl. The entire club attended, along with Sheriff Beckett, Megan Sullivan, and dozens of community members whose lives had been touched by the Desert Riders. Jennifer Blackwood officiated, her voice strong and clear as she spoke about love and community and the families we choose. Big Mike cried openly, which made everyone else cry. Tommy and David had decorated the clubhouse with flowers and lights, transforming the industrial space into something magical. When Marcus kissed his bride, the assembled bikers revved their engines in celebration, the sound echoing across Prescott Valley like thunder, like joy, like the promise of all the rides yet to come. Amanda Foster Sullivan stood in the center of the clubhouse, surrounded by her new family, her children, her husband, and felt gratitude so intense it took her breath away. She had survived the worst and found the best. She had been broken and had healed. She had been alone and had found belonging. And every day when she looked at the silver bracelet on her wrist with its tiny motorcycle wheel charm, she remembered. Sometimes angels wear leather. Sometimes family finds you instead of the other way around. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures, and sometimes all it takes is a group of bikers appearing from all sides to change everything.